Tonight's terrifying tale comes from the fog-shrouded coastline of Nova Scotia, where the boundary between our world and what lies beyond sometimes blurs. For a chance to win exclusive channel merchandise, watch until the end and answer the question about this chilling story. I hope you enjoy. Growing up in a coastal town, I always had a fascination with the sea. Not the romantic kind where you dream of sailing across crystal blue waters, no. But the kind where you respect its power, its ability to swallow ships whole, and keep secrets buried beneath its surface. For centuries. My name is Daniel Mercer. For the past 8 years, I've worked as a lighthouse keeper at Widow's Point, a remote outcropping of jagged rock about 3 miles offshore from Port Haven, Nova Scotia. The lighthouse has stood there for over 150 years, guiding ships safely through treacherous waters. At least, that's what it was built to do. These days, the actual navigation is handled by GPS and automated systems. My job is mostly maintenance, keeping the old structure from falling apart, documenting weather patterns, and reporting any unusual maritime activity. It's perfect for someone like me who prefers solitude and routine, or at least it was, until 3 weeks ago. I was in the middle of my usual 6-week rotation, 2 weeks in, 4 weeks out. That's how we operate. My colleague Jacob would take over when I left, maintaining the same schedule. It's a good system that allows us both extended periods of rest. That morning started like any other. I woke at 5 a.m., made coffee in my small kitchen, and headed up to the watchtower to check the weather conditions. A thick blanket of fog had rolled in overnight, reducing visibility to almost nothing. The foghorn automatically activated in these conditions, its low, mournful call echoing across the water every 30 seconds. Boo, boo, woo, moo, om. 30 seconds of silence. Boo, woo. I remember checking the barometer and noting the unusual reading. Despite the fog, the atmospheric pressure was high, typically an indicator of clear weather. Curious, but not alarming. Weather can be unpredictable on the Atlantic. After recording my observations in the logbook, I headed back down to prepare breakfast. That's when I first heard it. A faint tapping sound coming from somewhere below. It was rhythmic, almost deliberate. 3 quick taps, pause. 3 more taps, tap, tap, tap. Silence, tap, tap, tap. My first thought was that something had come loose in the wind. The lighthouse is constantly battered by sea spray and wind, and small repairs are part of daily life here. I followed the sound to the basement level where we keep most of our supplies and maintenance equipment. The tapping grew louder as I descended the spiral staircase, definitely coming from behind the old wooden door that led to the basement. When I pushed it open, the sound immediately stopped. The basement was exactly as I'd left it the day before. Shelves lined with canned goods, tools organized on the workbench, emergency generator in the corner. Nothing seemed out of place. I checked the walls for signs of water damage, thinking perhaps a pipe was causing the noise, but found nothing. Chalking it up to the old building settling, I went about my day. Weather reports indicated the fog would persist for at least 48 hours, so I prepared for a quiet couple of days, catching up on reading and minor repairs. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, the radio crackled to life. We maintain an old-fashioned radio system as a backup to the digital communications, mostly for emergency purposes. Through bursts of static, I heard a voice, faint but discernible. Assistance, adrift, position unknown. I immediately picked up the receiver. This is Widow's Point Lighthouse. Please identify yourself and your position if known. Nothing but static responded. I repeated my message several times but received no further communication. Following protocol, I logged the incident and sent a digital alert to the Coast Guard, providing the time and what little information I had. An hour later, I received a message back. No vessels reported missing or in distress in your vicinity. Continue to monitor and report any further communications. I tried to focus on my evening routine, but something felt off. The fog had grown even thicker, if that was possible, pressing against the windows like a living thing. The lighthouse beam cut through it ineffectively, creating an eerie glow rather than a clear path. That night, I struggled to sleep. The foghorn's continuous drone usually fades into background noise after a few days on the job, but tonight it seemed to be changing subtly, the pitch wavering, almost imperceptibly, between blasts.
At exactly 3:17 a.m., I remember checking my watch. I was jolted awake by the tapping again. This time, it wasn't coming from the basement but from my bedroom window. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3 more taps. My room is 60 feet above sea level. I pulled back the curtain but could see nothing through the dense fog pressing against the glass. As I stared into the whiteness, the tapping came again. This time directly in front of my face, as if someone was standing on the other side of the glass. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The rational part of my brain scrambled for explanations. A bird, debris caught in the wind, anything. But deep down, I knew better. Nothing could be outside that window. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it had been a dream. I went about my duties methodically, focusing on the routine to calm my nerves. The fog remained impenetrable, and the barometer's reading had dropped dramatically overnight, now indicating the storm that should have accompanied such thick fog. While checking the exterior gallery that afternoon, I noticed something strange on the rocks below. Even through the fog, I could make out what appeared to be pieces of wood. A lot of it, scattered across the jagged shore. Wreckage, possibly from a small boat or fishing vessel. I immediately radioed the Coast Guard again, reporting the debris. Their response was quick. No reports of missing vessels. We'll send patrol to investigate when weather clears. When I went back to check an hour later, the debris was gone. Completely vanished, as if it had never been there at all. The tide wasn't high enough to have washed it away so quickly. I questioned my own observation, wondering if the fog had played tricks on my eyes. That evening, the radio crackled again. This time the voice was clearer. Come again. No lights. Can't find the way. I grabbed the receiver. This is Widow's Point. Please identify yourself. The lighthouse is active. What is your position? The response chilled me to the bone. The light lies. Just those 3 words spoken in a flat, emotionless tone. Then static. Hiss. I checked all systems immediately. The lighthouse beam was functioning normally, the foghorn sounding its regular warning. Everything was working exactly as it should. I reported the communication, but downplayed the strange message, not wanting to appear shaken. The Coast Guard confirmed they would send a patrol boat as soon as the fog lifted, which meteorological reports predicted would happen within 24 hours. That night, I triple-checked all doors and windows before retiring to bed. I left lights on throughout the lighthouse, suddenly uncomfortable with the shadows and corners I had never given a second thought to before. Sleep came reluctantly, and when it did, dreamed of drowning, of being pulled beneath dark waves by unseen hands, struggling toward a distant light that never grew closer, no matter how hard I swam. The tapping woke me again. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3 more. This time it came from the door to my room. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. No response, just more tapping. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I reached for the flashlight I'd placed beside my bed and slowly approached the door. Through the keyhole, I could see nothing but darkness in the hallway beyond. Which was wrong, because I left the lights on. I didn't open the door. Instead, I barricaded it with a chair and retreated to the far corner of the room, flashlight clutched in my sweaty palm. The tapping continued intermittently throughout the night, sometimes at the door, sometimes at the window, sometimes seeming to come from inside the very walls. When dawn finally broke, I was still huddled in that corner, sleep-deprived and on edge. The fog outside my window had taken on a yellowish tinge, unnatural and sickly. I forced myself to remove the barricade and step into the hallway. The lights were indeed off, though I distinctly remembered leaving them on. Power outages aren't uncommon during storms, but the backup generator should have kicked in automatically. Cautiously, I made my way down to check the generator. Everything appeared functional, but when I tried to start it manually, nothing happened. It was as if the machine had been drained of all power. That's when I noticed the water on the floor, just a thin layer barely covering the soles of my shoes. Seawater by the smell of it, but there was no obvious source of the leak. I followed the water to a door I'd never noticed before, set into the wall behind the generator. It was old, made of weathered wood with rusted iron bands, and looked completely out of place among the more modern construction.
For a moment, I questioned my own sanity. How could I have missed this door during my 8 years of working here? I knew every inch of this lighthouse, every room, every stairwell, every storage closet. This door should not exist. And yet, there it was. Water was seeping from beneath it, forming a growing puddle on the concrete floor. And from behind it came the now familiar sound. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I reached for the handle. The metal was ice cold to the touch, so cold it seemed to burn my palm. I pulled back with a hiss of pain, examining the reddened skin of my hand. That's when the radio on my belt crackled to life. Daniel. Just my name, spoken in a voice that sounded almost familiar. I unclipped the radio with trembling hands. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "You need to open the door, Daniel." "Who are you?" I demanded again. "You'd know who I am." And somehow I did. The voice belonged to Thomas Fletcher, the lighthouse keeper who had worked here before me, before Jacob, the man who had disappeared without a trace during a similar fog 10 years ago. "That's not possible," I whispered. "The light lies," came the response. "It always has. It doesn't guide ships to safety, it lures them to the rocks. It has since the beginning, and now it needs a new keeper." I backed away from the door, from the radio, from all of it. I needed to get out. I needed to contact the mainland. My satellite phone, backup for when all other communications fail, was in my quarters. I sprinted up the spiral staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time, unsure if I was being pursued, but unwilling to look back to check. I burst into my room, grabbed the phone from its charging dock, and jabbed at the power button. Nothing happened. Like the generator, it seemed drained of all power. Outside, the fog pressed against my window, no longer white or even yellow, but a deep, dark gray, almost black. It swirled and shifted as if alive, forming patterns that almost resembled faces frozen in expressions of agony. The tapping came again, from all around me now. The windows, the door, the walls, the ceiling. No longer in groups of 3, but continuous, growing louder and louder by the second until it became a deafening drumbeat. I covered my ears and screamed, but I couldn't even hear my own voice over the noise. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Complete silence fell over the lighthouse. Even the foghorn had gone quiet. That's when I heard the unmistakable sound of the front door opening 3 floors below, followed by heavy footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate steps making their way up toward me. I had nowhere to run. The footsteps grew closer, reaching my floor, approaching my door. The handle turned slowly. I don't really remember what happened next. The Coast Guard patrol found me 2 days later, huddled in the corner of my room, severely dehydrated and babbling incoherently about fog that had faces and doors that shouldn't exist. There was no sign of a break-in, no mysterious door in the basement, no water damage anywhere in the building. The lighthouse systems were all functioning normally. According to their records, no radio communications had been sent or received during the time I claimed to have heard them. Medical personnel diagnosed me with extreme stress and hallucinations brought on by prolonged isolation and sleep deprivation. A common enough occurrence among lighthouse keepers, apparently. They urged me to take an extended leave of absence. My employers were understanding, but made it clear they thought I should consider a different line of work. I haven't told anyone what really convinced me of the truth. What I saw when that door to my room opened. Not the Coast Guard, not the doctors, not even my family. I'm writing this now from a hospital bed in Halifax, where I've been recovering for the past week. Tomorrow they're releasing me, and I'm supposed to start therapy to deal with what they're calling an acute stress reaction. But tonight, as I was packing my few belongings, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My watch, the same one I was wearing during those nights at the lighthouse, has stopped. The face is cracked, as if it had been struck repeatedly with something hard. The time displayed is 3:17 a.m., and there on the inside of the band, where no one else would notice, are 3 small dark spots. 3 perfectly round spots that smell of salt and copper. I don't know what's happening at Widow's Point Lighthouse. I don't know if Thomas Fletcher is trying to warn me or lure me back. But I know I won't be returning to the mainland tomorrow. I need to go back to the lighthouse one more time to find that door and see what lies behind it. If I don't return and someone finds this account, please understand one thing. The light lies. It always has. I hope my story serves as a warning. The sea keeps its secrets for a reason. Daniel Mercer, Halifax Regional Hospital, March 15th, 2023. I hope you enjoyed this terrifying tale from the edge of the Atlantic. For a chance to win exclusive channel merchandise, email me with the answer to this question. What time did Daniel's watch stop? Winning entries will be chosen next Friday. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.